There are so many factors which contribute to a basketball player's greatness, from championships and regular season awards to points per game and consistency. It's so hard to distinguish between players of different eras, positions and situations. So the basketball fan that I am, in today's video I'm going to be going through my top 50 NBA players of all time and breaking down why I place players at certain spots. I've curated this list over many years and finally feel confident enough to reveal it to you guys, so let me know what you think. Before we begin, only about 8% of you guys are actually subscribed. That number is going up steadily, let's keep growing this community one sub at a time. Join the channel Discord, link in bio, so that you're always notified when I stream, upload videos, or just to get input on content I put out. I've also started a channel TikTok, so check that out, link in bio. Like the video if you enjoy, and without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to base my rankings off a number of factors, including stats, era, player achievements, championships, dominance, and overall legacy. These factors create a perfect ideal to base my ideas on. With that out of the way, let's get into the list. But first, some honourable mentions. These include some oldies like George Mikan, Paul Aronson, and Bill Sharman, along with more modern players such as Tony Parker, Klay Thompson, Tracy McGrady, and Ben Wallace. These players are obviously very good in their own right, but just didn't make it for one reason or another. I'll go in 10 player increments and explain my reasoning to the picks. Starting off at 50 with Dwight Howard. An amazing defensive player in his prime, he helped to lead the Magic to some deep playoff appearances. At 49 we have Reggie Miller, who is one of the best shooters of all time, but didn't necessarily achieve many individual awards, but was still a very successful player. At 48 we have Gary Payton, who they didn't call the glove for nothing, who was an amazing one-on-one player in one of the most competitive eras of basketball, helping to lead an otherwise mediocre Supersonics team to a finals appearance. Paul Pierce, despite his questionable off-court career, is definitely top 50, a finals MVP, champion, and a great shooter. The truth comes in at 47. At 46 I have his teammate and now rival Ray Allen as the second best shooter of all time in my opinion, who helped to contribute on some great teams like the purple colour Bucks, Sonics, Celtics and Heat. Jokic and Ewing are both amazing centers, Ewing obviously more old school but a dominant force in the Michael Jordan era. Jokic has to get a mention as a two-time MVP, he should probably be higher but he still has to prove a little more in terms of sustaining his career and winning some playoff series. Ewing places at 45 and Jokic at 43. Gervin, Reed and Frazier are some older era players, but all obviously great in their time. It's hard to truly judge their talent, but here's where they ended up ranking. Next we have players from spots 40 to 31. Bill Walton lands in at 40. He won a chip with the Blazers, which is a feat itself, while picking up a finals MVP. He's followed by Kevin McHale at 39, who along with John Havlicek at 38 were both Celtics legends, Havlicek playing in the 60s and McHale playing with Bird and Parrish in the 80s. Both very successful players in terms of winning, but players who were never the first option on their roster. I have the triple-double machine, Russell Westbrook, coming in at 37, and despite not being in his prime currently, he obviously averaged a 32-point triple-double for a season while winning MVP, and took a trip to the finals with KD. Although Russ is definitely playing like he's out of his prime at the moment, he deserves a spot here at 37. John Stockton, one of if not the best passer of all time, and an integral part of the Jazz's trip to the finals, even if they didn't end up winning due to a certain Michael Jordan. He's a 9-time assist champ and a 2-time steals champ. Stockton wasn't athletic and didn't average the most points, but helped in other aspects on the court. That's why he comes in at 36. One of the best scorers of all time and an MVP winner, James Harden deserves some respect, even though he is Giannis' son. Scottie Pippen is the best sidekick of all time, and complemented MJ perfectly. He benefits off the fact that he does have 6 championships to show for it, but is still more than solid as his own player. Jason Kidd and Steve Nash are very similar, extremely good passers and able to score at a decent but not absurdly high level. I gave Nash the edge just because he does have 2 MVPs, despite not really deserving one of them if not both. They come in at 33 and 32 respectively. Allen Iverson is a hard player to rank. In my heart he would be higher, but a lack of overall team success stops him from being placed any higher, despite his second to none scoring ability and individual talent. Cracking into the top 30 on this list, Elgin Baylor was a scoring machine in his day. He's overlooked in most cases, but little do fans know in his best season he averaged 38, 19 and 5, and still didn't win the MVP that year. Obviously a different time, but still an amazing level player. Bob Pettit is incredibly old, playing in the 50s, but still was a brilliant player who helped to push the game forward. I might be overrating him a bit, but it's always hard to rank older players who had big impact on the game today. Kawhi, another current player, cracks the top 30. He's a 2-time final MVP and is a serial winner, despite not playing that many games currently, and me myself contributing more to the NBA in the past couple of years, but he comes in at 28. CP0 rings is next, and although an NBA championship eludes him, He's another player who's been great for a number of years and ranks high in both assists and steals, while also being more than solid defensively. His point guard brother Isaiah Thomas, not the short one, is at 26, a two-time champ. IT and the Bad Boy Pistons helped to capitalise on the changing of eras, and although he wasn't really respected back then, he did succeed within the league, there's no doubt about that. Clyde the Glide Drexler comes in at 25. He's a player who doesn't have the complete resume of others, but through longevity and all-around athleticism and ability, he's able to place this highly. He won a chip in '95 and was a 10-time All-Star throughout his career. At 24 we have Charles Barkley, and Chuck was an MVP, rebounding machine, and incredible scorer in a large and dominant frame. It's unfortunate he never won a chip thanks to Michael Jordan, but in his prime he's a force to be reckoned with. KG sometimes gets overlooked I feel, but was an MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and NBA champion. Arguably his best years went to waste in Minnesota, but he did experience some team success later with the Celtics. Karl Malone at 22, nothing else to be said. Dirk led the Mavericks to an incredible title run against the odds and against the Miami Heat super team. He was also an MVP and played a total of 16 or 17 productive seasons in the NBA. He barely misses out on the top 20 at 21. Just barely cracking the top 20 are Giannis Antetokounmpo. I feel like Giannis has proved himself enough to be at 20. A Finals MVP, champion, Defensive Player of the Year, and two-time MVP. The Greek Freak still has a lot to prove and could definitely move up this list in the coming years. David Robinson was the original big man in San Antonio before Timmy D. Rivals with Shaq and a scoring champion, D-Rob experienced a part of the Spurs dynasty and was a consistent, old school and dominant player. The Flash Dwayne Wade comes in at 18. He led the Heat to a chip in 2006 before he teamed up with LeBron, one of my favourite players of all time. True fans choose to forget about his time in Cleveland and Chicago. Moses Malone doesn't have that style factor of some other names this high up, but he was a certified baller in his own right. A Finals MVP along with 3 regular season MVPs. He was unstoppable in the early 80s. Dr. J was arguably better in his time in the ABA, but I'm taking both leagues' achievements as one, so fair enough I think. A layup god, an underrated ball handler, Dr. J brought flair to basketball in the 70s. The logo Jerry West comes in at 15. He averaged 27 points, 7 assists and 6 rebounds a game across his career. He was a scoring champ and actually won a Finals MVP on a losing team. Helping to establish the Lakers in the 60s, West's era doesn't hold him back in my rankings. The Big O Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double before it was a common occurrence, and is probably the best player in Kings history. Not that impressive? Well, at least he won a championship with the Bucks and was an excellent all-round player and playmaker. KD places in at 13, a 2-time Finals MVP and 4-time scoring champ. Although he did run from the grind, he's also an excellent and generational talent. Hakeem is definitely underrated on most lists and was able to grab 2 chips while MJ was playing baseball and patented his signature dream shake and a high level of defense. He just can't crack into the top 10 for me personally. Wilt was obviously very dominant in his time and accomplished feats that will probably never be done again. But due to him losing to Bill Russell consistently, not winning that much, and playing in a less talented era, I have to penalise him a little bit, so he just misses out on the top 10. He was in my top 10 until the end of last season. And probably for the moment of the video most of you have been waiting for, unveiling my top 10 NBA players of all time. I'm going to take this one player by player. At number 10 I have Stephen Curry. With his 4th championship early this year, I thought I had to move Curry into my top 10. The best shooter of all time undeniably, and a part of one of the best teams of all time at Golden State. Steph is still at the top of his game right now, although the Warriors haven't started the best this season. At number 9 I have Tim Duncan, a vastly underrated player. The big fundamental won a championship in 3 different decades, and was the major centerpiece of the Spurs dynasty. One of the highest win percentages of all time by a player, Timmy D cracks the top 10 at number 9. At number 8 is Larry Bird. Larry Legend is for sure a top 10 shooter of all time, top 5 arguably. His career featured a back and forth rivalry with Magic in the 80s, and he definitely deserves the recognition here. Bill Russell, rest in peace, comes in at number 7, the most winningest player in NBA history. Even though there were less teams and worse competition, you have to give him some high praise for legendary levels of leadership, rebounding and defense. I have Shaq in the 6th slot. One of the most dominant players of all time, Shaq was a freak of nature. 4 championships and averages near 24 and 11 across his career. He lands in at 6. At number 5 I have Magic Johnson. The best player in NBA history for his size, he was able to control the tempo of a game and also fortify a winning culture at the Lakers in the 80s. Controversial, but at 4 I have Kobe Bean Bryant. The Mamba mentality, 5 chips and the ability to nearly close out any game. Kobe gets heavily underrated or overrated on other lists I've seen, but I think the 4th spot is reasonable. Feel free to argue about it in the comments below. The 3rd best NBA player of all time is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. From dominating at UCLA To bring a championship to Milwaukee, to winning 6 MVPs, the most of all time, Kareem is definitely the best center to play the game. LeBron is a worthy opponent, but I can't have him beating out MJ. LeBron has been great for so long, all my life, literally. He's been a top player in the league and still continues to average great numbers and raise the ceiling of a team, most of the time anyway. A great passer and intellect of the game, who could forget feats like the 2016 finals and his reign in Miami, legend, top 2 all time. And obviously that leaves his heiress, Michael Jordan, as the best NBA player of all time. 6-time champion and leader of the greatest team of all time in my opinion, his heiress did things that just shouldn't be possible. 72 wins in a season? Impossible. Win 6 titles in 8 years? Impossible. Take a break to play baseball and then just casually continue being the best player in the sport? Extremely impossible. I could go on and on here, but I might make a follow-up video showcasing my opinions on the LeBron vs Michael Jordan comparison. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Are my rankings terrible or spot on? Am I overrating or underrating any players? The support recently has been great as always. Start this year I'm going to be kicking this channel into overdrive and the content upload into high gear, so stick around for that. Comment any video ideas down below and I'll make sure to check them out. Show the video and the Discord some love. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for future sports field content. Have a good one and cheers.